Good evening, welcome everyone. My name is Laurie Thorlickson. I'm the director of the European Union Centre of Excellence, and I'm delighted to welcome you here today and to welcome our speaker here today. I'll introduce in a moment. This talk is part of a series of events that we host at the European Union Centre of Excellence. And tonight we're very fortunate that we were able to team up with the government of Alberta, and I'm pleased to welcome Wasilowski with the government of Alberta. The reception that follows this talk is hosted by the government of Alberta, Department of Economic Development and Trade, and our partnership between the government of Alberta and the EU Centre of Excellence is intended to enhance Alberta's knowledge about and relationship with Europe. So we're very pleased about that. Our speaker this evening, Dr. Agnieszka Wejner, holds a PhD in political science from the University of Warsaw. She's also a Marie Curie Fellow, and she is with the Migration Policy Center at the European University Institute in Florence, Italy. And her Marie Curie has taken her to Carleton University, where she's conducting research on migration, out-migration from the EU to Canada. But tonight, Agnieszka will be speaking on post-2012 change or continuation in the EU migration policy. And so this is very important, I think, because Dr. Wejner will be giving us some important background, some policy background to the current migration situation in Europe, giving us some better idea of how EU policy has addressed the EU neighborhood. So without any further ado, welcome. Thank you. So I want to start that I'm very grateful to the hosts, both the University of Alberta and the government of Alberta. It has been a very pleasant day, I would say. We started off in the morning, and I'm learning a lot about the province. That is also for me very interesting because I'm trying to understand more about the Canadian ways of dealing with migration while I'm here, in order, hopefully, to be able to bring some of this knowledge back to Europe where we really need it. So I wanted maybe to start with asking you a question. How many of you know anything about European Union? Very general. Okay, it exists. How many of you know anything about EU institutions? How they work? Okay, great. How many of you know anything about EU migration policy? Okay, so I will then foresee a greater element of complexity in my presentation. I'm actually, yes, I work at the Migration Policy Center at the EY in Florence. This is sort of a backroom for the Commission for policy analysis. So whatever we do, we don't really publish
publish this, we send analysis to our colleagues who are the desk officers in the Commission. And to give you a background about myself as well, after completing the PhD and working at the University of Warsaw, I basically moved to the Commission for a couple of years, actually almost 4 years, as a policy officer for migration, for what is called the EU external dimension on migration policy to the east. And the talk that I offered is actually based on a chapter that will be published in January in a book edited by Tobias Schumacher from the College of Europe. And this is why it's a very specific talk. The framework of analysis and the guiding question was, what was the impact of the renewed EU neighborhood policy on the migration, in my case, on the migration policy field in 2012. How many of you know what the migration, what the European neighborhood policy is? Ha! So I will also explain that. Okay, so because I think that this is very different from Canada. You don't have much of the neighborhood, basically, because it's like. Sorry, so I will go like this. First, so I will explain the rationale and main concepts that I will be using. Then I will explain to you what we mean by migration cooperation in the ENP. This is what I will be talking about ENP, European Neighborhood Policy. And then I will go through a couple of policy tools and processes to give you an idea of the tools that EU is using in the neighborhood to cooperate on migration with other countries. And then I will conclude, and then I will give you the freedom to talk about the migrant crisis that you probably want to talk about, no matter what the problem. So this is what will happen in another hour or so. Okay? So I start with a question. Why does the EU have an external dimension of its neighborhood policy? You see here pictures. Yes?
It has an external dimension of its migration policy only because in migration, by definition, it almost from people moving from one country to another. Therefore, there's always going to be some foreign element of a migration policy.
Absolutely foreign element. The problem is that this is the only entity, political entity that officially has a policy like that. Officially. That they really talk about it in these terms. I haven't heard about external dimension of migration policy of the US, for example. Australia a little bit, but they don't really call it like that either. So these are basically the main arguments that I put in the pictures here. So you can see the map of the migration routes to Europe. So you have all the transit countries and the countries of origin. And at one point in 2000, basically EU member states said, we cannot deal with this inflows only from our side. We need to stop the people on the way. The brackets, remember that EU migration policy is about stopping people from coming. It's not about inviting them to come. The different mindset, I would say. So the idea was that we should work with all these people, all the governments here and there, in order to control the flow as the people move. Then you have, sorry, the Calais issue. How many of you know what Calais is? So already for people there. So of course this is a problem of intra-EU mobility of undocumented would-be asylum seekers. So there is this huge camp of these people trying to get to the UK to apply for asylum in the UK because they don't want to apply in France. They don't want to stay there as refugees. And that was a big issue already, well, easily 12 years ago. Right? So it's not new. Now it's just bigger. And then you have this. Who knows what is this? Yeah?
Is it refugee camps?
Yeah? Anybody from the development study? They would know. So this is the biggest refugee camp in Kenya that basically serves now several hundred thousands of people. Have been living there for almost 18 years, right? So the idea is at the EU level that this is something we don't really like because it's problematic that people stay there for long. Also because if you stay in a refugee camp without a possibility to have a normal life, like normal work, welfare, access to rights, you might get an idea and do this, right? We don't want that. So we want to cooperate with the countries that are hosts of these camps in order to bring the solutions to the issue. Then, of course, we have this. These are the smuggling boats on the Mediterranean. So those are actually people, and many of them that die on the way through the sea. The issue is that still, let's say, the success rate is pretty high, so they still do this, and we don't want this. We don't want people being dead on the Mediterranean. So it's problematic for different reasons. So it's better to keep them on this side of the sea. The idea. So, okay. So now the analytical framework. Okay. Keep focus. The idea of the book is that we ask, does 2011 to 2012 mark a change or continuity in the approach to migration in the neighborhood? And we say that we have markers of change that we should be looking for in the analysis. And I will tell you up front, there are basically 4 types of the markers. We have trends. So how, for example, in my case, how migration will develop the flows, right? Or the policy trends, long-term trends that can actually provoke change. Then you have great events. Then you have great achievements. This is, for me, not very relevant for the migration issue. It's sort of like getting a Nobel Prize in something in migration. This is not really applicable. And then you have significant scientific and technological innovations. This might be the case in migration as regards surveillance, but it's not really important. In the analysis, I will tell you that identified only trends and the great events that brought small change to how EU is doing the business of migration policy in the neighborhood.
Dr. can I just interrupt and ask for your definition of neighborhood? Because I'm a little
This
bit
is
confused.
this is my next slide.
Okay.
Okay. So then we have the types of change, right? So I was told to look. You know, when you write a chapter in a book, you are told. So I was looking for change as transformation and change as addition, change as replacement, and the dialectical change. What it means? It means that change as a transformation would be a small modification, very evolutionary of the trend in the policy. So no earthquakes on the way, right? Then we have change as addition. It means that, for example, new elements would be added to the existing policy, new instruments. But the direction of the policy would not really change. Then you have change as replacement. You take one policy, you replace it with a totally new thing. And then you have the dialectical change, meaning you change the way you talk about the policy. What I identified are only the two first elements, and I will explain you why. And this is the presentation. So I will look at the main cooperation tools that EU is using. So we have so-called RCPs, regional consultative processes. Does anybody know what it is? So you will learn a new thing now, a learning curve. So RCPs are basically intergovernmental meetings that were established in Europe by the member states of the European Union before even European Union was interested in talking about migration to anybody. That was in the first one was established in 1993. This is a Budapest process. It's called that. It was established with the money from Austria and Swiss governments. And the idea was to teach the post-communist states in Central and Eastern Europe about how to manage the border and migration. Because, of course, that was the period of the big influx of people in the continent, you know, with the states falling apart, with the war in Yugoslavia. So that process was used for a know-how, let's say, diffusion, right? So we call it policy diffusion, policy learning, and now we have many more of these RCPs everywhere, in the east and on the south, and they are like not really EU level, but more member states level, but many of them get money from the EU to function. Then you have visa policy, this is straightforward. Readmission policy, this is less obvious for people in Canada, I assume. I don't think we have readmission policy the way we have. No. So readmission policy basically means agreements with other countries to send the people back. And then you have beautiful instrument called mobility partnership. When we say, okay, we have readmission agreements, they are sort of imposing our will on you, but then we will give you a mobility partnership in which framework you will get more mobility or more other perks that I will explain later. So these are the instruments I will be talking about. So this is the neighborhood. So the problem for you today is, oh my God, she will be talking about anything else. She won't be talking about Turkey and the Balkans, so it's probably very boring. So the good thing for you to know is that when I talk about the neighborhood and the migration policy in the neighborhood, and the tools used in the neighborhood, the same tools are used for everybody in the world. The, the difference is the scale, the money that is being used to implement the tools. So for example, for the candidate countries like Turkey and the Balkans, they get much more support in financial terms to implement the policy tools. All the green countries here, so you have southern neighborhood and eastern neighborhood, they get slightly less money, but still good. They are seen as the transit countries, by the way. And then you have everybody else, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa or in Asia, where the tools are basically the same but are not offered. They can be offered, so it depends on the political decision in the end. Is it clear that we have this groups of countries? Yes? Okay. So keep up with me. It's complicated, I know. We divide the the world in big circles. So we have, when we talk about the migration policy in the neighborhood, we have an issue immediately because we have European neighborhood policy, which is a policy on its own that deals basically with the development and the democratization of all the countries surrounding the EU, with this idea that we have to have sort of a cordon sanitaire of countries that are not failed states. So if our neighbors are okay, we will be also okay. This is this idea. And migration in that policy, which was actually established in 2003 for the first time, was a small part. It wasn't even important there. Also because the main flows did not come really from these countries when I talk about undocumented flows. So it wasn't that important. When you look at the main the documents, and I have them here, and I will explain what it is. Migration, for example, in the partnership and cooperation agreements that we have with these countries, or association agreement. You heard about the association agreement, I assume, right? At least last year. All right, so there you have this idea that cooperation on migration should be basically limited to borders, but it's very small in comparison to other areas like economic development, education, or democratization actually. So we tell these countries in the ENP that you have to do the border management, and you should learn about asylum, because if they know about the asylum, then they will be able to take more people on the way, so not that many people will come to us. This is the idea. And then we also tell them about irregular flows. Right? So I have to underline here that in the case of Eastern countries, Eastern European countries, the Eastern neighborhood, we talked only about this. Whereas in the case of the Southern countries, where, bilateral cooperation that goes way back in the past when you think about France, Morocco, Spain, Morocco, right? The, 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 the colonial ties. Their position when they negotiated these agreements was much stronger. They would say, okay, you want me to sign an agreement where you want me to learn and to apply your idea of the border management. I would like you, European Union, to do something about migrant integration or migration and development. So to help our people who emigrated through the EU, so the Moroccans would say, to have a better life. So these small additions were there for the South in the EMP. So this is one policy, right? This is 2003, more or less, until now, with the overhaul in 2011 to 2012. And then you have a policy that is called a global approach to migration and mobility. And this is actually why I was hired to work in the commission. Because in 2007, this policy was introduced in the DG Home Affairs. That was at the time the JLS, it doesn't matter. So absolutely not in, do you know what the DG is? So I have to explain that. You have to tell me if you don't know. So a DG is like a ministry in the commission. Right? So you have ministry on this, on that, employment, enlargement. So ministry of, let's say, external relations would deal with the ENP, right? The European Neighborhood Policy. But then something happened, and the Ministry of Internal Affairs would actually come up with their own policy, the global approach to migration. And what happened? This actually happened. Anybody heard about that? This is Ceuta and Melilla in 2005. Oh, that's what was the reaction to alarm. What's she talking about? So anybody? Probably not. Well, yeah.
And Moroccan people trying to illegally enter Spain, and because Spain has a part of its territory in Africa, and as well as such, they try and breach its fence so that way they can travel to the European mainland.
So there is one issue with that. So Ceuta and Melilla are actually Spanish enclaves on the Moroccan territory, roughly speaking. They're really small. They are 2 towns, and they are Spain, right? So this is the fence along the border. So if they tell you that there are no fences along the EU borders, don't believe them. We have quite a lot of them, but we don't talk about them. So they're like undercover. So these were not Moroccans. These were Sub-Saharan Africans that actually jumped over the fence. They tried every night, even now as we are talking. But in 2005, what happened? They were shot at. We still don't know if that was by the Moroccan border guards or Spanish border guards. And they were killed. And that was the moment where the EU member states said, especially the ministers of Home Affairs said, you know what, we have to do something about it. This is about the border, so this is about our prerogative. We won't leave it to the foreign ministries at all. We will do it. So, of course, UK was then a presidency of the European Union, and they had this fantastic idea to have a global approach to migration, which would mean basically that we will ask other countries to cooperate with us, so they all get readmission agreements tied in place, and we will give them the carrot. So we will give them either some facilitation in a visa, or we will promise help on migration and development. This is, roughly speaking, what the global approach to migration is. It's global because it's for the whole world now, but it's global also because it tackles all the different topics in migration policy thinking, at least on paper. So, right, so these two policies, so this ENP on one side and the global approach, were developed at the same time. And of course, there was a lot of friction, as the colleagues here from the government would probably know, that everybody had a turf, right? So we had the turf wars between the prerogatives, right? Who is responsible for what? So still, it looks like the external dimension of the European migration policy is run by Home Affairs. This needs to be clear. All right. So the difference is clear because, of course, the offers in the official agreements with the neighborhood countries was, as I said, very limited to the few points, whereas the global approach was global, right? With many things. Then, of course, after 2012, this didn't really change. When you read a communication on the new European neighborhood policy, it's still about readmission, the borders, the visa. There's nothing really revolutionary there, because the whole revolution takes place in the other policy area, and this is pretty difficult. So we have the RCPs. I put here two logos that you should be able to recognize after this talk. Maybe you will recognize IOM there, but there's also ICMPD. This is an Austrian-based organization that is an intergovernmental European IOM. This is what it is, basically. These two organizations run the secretariats for the RCPs. So they get money from the EU member states or the Commission to organize these big processes. To give you an example, ICMPD, for example, runs the Budapest process that I mentioned before. Now, it is a place where 53 countries actually meet, Canada included. So the Canada and US and Australia have the status of observers. So it's much bigger than it was at the beginning, right? So this is a lot of work. And what they do there, they basically discuss the technicalities of the migration policy making. So you have experts like the policy officers talking to other policy officers, how to recognize a true refugee, for example. So have trainings on that, or how to use the biometrics in your border control. They have trainings on that. And this is all basically to learn new technologies and solutions in the policy making in Europe and beyond. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. That is Eastern Neighborhood in 2008. All these circles are actually the, let's say, cooperation frameworks that these countries were engaged with or in with the EU. It was too much. Since 2008, thanks to the Commission, this number was cut in half, and this is important as a change. So this is where these are all all RCPs that we have, and these are all the countries in the neighborhood that cooperate there. I put their Syria at one point because it was a country that was important, but now of course they don't cooperate in anything, right? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean that to be funny. Turkey is not there, but Turkey is basically present here, here, and here. They are not in the neighborhood policy, that's why they're not in the table, but they have very big presence. And to the point that at one point, when EU was in the lowest point of the financial crisis, the Turkish government took over financing of some of the RCDs from the EU because we didn't have the money that they had at that time.
What are the current state of negotiations with Turkey attempting to enter the EU? Because I've read somewhere that they're trying to negotiate treaties to readmit the failed asylum seekers into Turkey. In exchange, Turkey would get financial aid and also attempt to join the European Union.
That is interesting. So it was only a political offer laid on the table by Mrs. Merkel, but still the negotiations have not been unfrozen yet because that happened like what, three weeks ago? Well, on the 15th of October, they signed the declaration, what they will be doing. So we'll see what happens in the next year, and then we'll see where we are. Basically, the negotiations are stuck at the issue of Cyprus, and yeah, Cyprus.
But if Turkey joins the European Union, Cyprus is also a member of the European Union. Therefore, they could just abolish the border between the Cyprus and Turkey.
Tell it to the guys in Cyprus. This is very logical, but not for everybody. Okay, so right, and then we have EU cooperation tools. So we have visa, which is a very unilateral tool, right? So EU decides on short-term visas if the countries will get facilitation or not. Then we have readmission agreements. This is very bilateral tool. We have to get the people to agree. And then we have the processes, the mobility partnerships. You can see that this is on purpose, the UK flag on the ground, because UK does not deal with it at all. I mean, they are outside. They don't like it. Okay. So, visa. Everything in green is visa waiver. Everything in red, you need a visa to enter the EU. Everything in blue is actually EU, the dark blue. And then, what is interesting? We had the visa facilitation agreements, and they are a very interesting story to tell in the neighborhood because they will show you a different treatment of the neighborhoods. Visa facilitation was offered only for the first time to Russia when the EU approached Russia to have a readmission agreement with, right? And the Russian said, you have to offer me something, right? Why should I sign this? So there was a big brainstorming, and what happened was that in exchange, EU agreed to the visa facilitation. Why would a Russian government agree to that? This is because visa facilitation concerns only few categories of people. The first thing it does, it cuts basically in half the cost of the visa. So you don't need to pay 60 euros but 35, which is important. But then it gives sort of visa-free, free visa to students and all people who are in the government, for example. So and to the people who do business, big business, very often. Right? So this is an important carrot for the government to agree to sign a readmission agreement in exchange for the visa facilitation. Right now we have 13 agreements. They are mostly with the neighboring countries. We have one with Turkey as well since 2013, I think, something like that. And then we have the visa liberalization, which is a different story. This is not like in the US where you have. Do you know what they have as a visa waiver system? Yeah, someone knows.
Is it the visa waiver program or the electronic system for travel authorization?
No. This is what I mean. What I mean is, what are the rules for visa waiver in the US? Because in Canada, I have no idea.
To enter the US without a visa, you must have a confirmed address in America.
No, not a person. So, like, you negotiated with a country, right? So US says, okay, tomorrow, I don't know, all the Austrians, well, Austrians is not relevant. All, I don't know what, so Indians won't need to have a visa to enter the US. How does this happen? Usually, there is a rule that this happens when the rate of refusal for visa is lower than 10%. So there is a rule. Of course, there are a lot of exceptions to the rule. We all know this, depending on whatever happens around the US. In Europe, we don't have that. We don't have this rule. We try to come up with a rule, and we don't. So instead, it's very political. So we use the visa liberalization, and we don't use it. So we don't use it in relation to Canadians. I mean, this is automatic. We don't ask you to enter in the visa liberalization action plan. Right? This did not happen. It was sort of bilateral understanding of the mobility issue. So OECD, South America, this is easy. Even small Pacific islands like Tuvalu and Kiribati, you don't need a visa to go to the US if you want, to the EU. But if you happen to be in the neighborhood or the Balkans, closer to the borders, there we will come up with the visa liberalization action plan. This is actually a tool that forces the countries outside of the EU to change or to develop policies on topics of security and migration and democratization. There are basically 4 areas where we want these countries to prove development, meaning, for example, biometrics. So we ask them all to have biometric passports. We ask them to, for example, assure the rights of the minorities, so the minorities don't migrate when they need a visa, right? This did not work with the Balkans, unfortunately, so there is some issues there, right? But this is what we want. We ask them to have a good visa policy themselves, an integration policy, so people don't move up, So this is a big process that is now used basically as a substitute to enlargement. Because in enlargement, we had to do all this, because we knew that at the end we will be a member of the EU. Now, the countries do this because this will give them a visa-free for tourism. Okay. So, what is interesting? The year where we had the issue with annexation of Crimea, a small country called the Republic of Moldova, I don't know if you know where it is, between Romania and Ukraine, that was in the process of visa liberalization, suddenly got accepted very speedily. So they did a lot of work, but in the EU before that it was people would say no, they need to work more, it will take time, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, maybe 10 years. Russia annexes Crimea, 5 months, right? So the Moldovans on the east got that. Ukraine is still in this process. And many people would actually say a year ago they would get visa-free now in 2015. But of course, because they have a war, it's slightly problematic. The moment they will not have a war, they will get it as well. So you can see how political it is as well, right? Okay. And by the way, this is what the Turks want now in exchange for keeping the refugees in Turkey. And they will get it. So now this is readmission agreement. So these are the big blue spots are the readmission agreements in the EU. So the bigger spots that the country has the most of these agreements. So we can see Spain almost with everybody in Latin America because they get a lot of immigrants from Latin America, and they want to be able to return them from where they came. Well, one thing you have to remember about readmission agreements, well, actually two things. One thing is the EU readmission agreement obliged the country, the partner country, to take in anybody who came through that country. So not only on nationals, anybody, right? This is very difficult clause to negotiate. This is why many countries in the neighborhood didn't want to sign it. And you could see the difference. On the east, basically all the eastern neighborhood countries were offered, after Russia, this deal, visa facilitation in exchange for the readmission agreements, and they did that. No problem. No questions asked, because in their minds that was European integration. This is what EU wanted. In Africa, the countries in the Mediterranean, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, this parts of Africa, they were not offered visa facilitation. They were offered only a readmission agreement. So no carrot, only a stick. So of course, no one signed that thing. And then you have in 2011 the Arab Spring, and this actually changed very importantly the dynamics, because on the EU side there was this idea that we need to be nicer, to the government there to promote stability. So that the member states agreed to offer visa facilitation negotiations in exchange of readmission agreement, of course. On the other side, the problem of security was that big that actually the countries there, especially Morocco and Tunisia, said, whatsoever, but in exchange of your European expertise in fighting terrorism, for example, and helping us with the undocumented flows, and the visa facilitation, that would be nice. But you see, we sort of met after this big event that we had. Okay. And the last two, the mobility partnerships. Right, so these are memoranda of understanding, so they are not real legally binding agreements. We meet as the EU and the member states with another country and we say, you know, we want to do something nice and something less nice about migration and mobility. We have to work in the partnership. So the first one in the neighborhood was signed in 2008 with Moldova, because Moldova was really a champion of European integration. They wanted to do everything, and they really succeeded, honestly. And they usually have, we call it a Christmas tree structure. So we ask the country, what would you like from us? And they come, with a list: labor, migration quotas, visa-free, the money for this, the money for that, training in this, training in that. And then we say, no, I'm sorry, we cannot do labor migration, or maybe we can. EU will never actually agree to that because EU has no legal right to regulate legal migration, labor migration. This is the member states. So if the member states under the mobility partnership say, hey, yes, we can do France, Moldova labor migration scheme, this is what they do, what they offer. So what is happening in mobility partnerships? They are not really about mobility. They are more about cooperation on migration issues. So most of the initiatives and projects would have been there anyway between the countries on the bilateral level, but under the EU umbrella, they look, more EU, and they also serve coordination with that country. To give you an example, when we were negotiating, it cannot be called negotiating, but okay, discussing the mobility partnership with Georgia, a country in the Caucasus, right? After the war in 2008 with Russia, they really wanted anything European, so they were like, we will do that. And we went there, and we have this meeting, so we have a Christmas tree list, and we have the member states offering stuff, and half of the member states would offer border control training, and the Georgians told us that basically there were already 63 projects on border management run by the EU member states that we didn't know about, but the member states either, So the number of initiatives run by the member states in the neighborhood is huge. So the mobility partnerships are actually meant to put it all together and to sort of pool the resources. Now, what is important is that this tool was offered also, of course, to Moroccans and the others before 2011. They didn't even want to talk about it. Because they said, you wanted for the readmission agreement, and we don't be signing it, so it's not a deal. After 2011, again, the change, Arab Spring, mobility partnership, okay, basically they got a lot of funding for other projects. within the mobility partnership that have nothing to do with migration, but they were able to discuss that. What is also important in the case of the eastern neighborhood, that was pretty easy. We discussed, besides, we implemented. In the case of Morocco, for example, what happened? We discussed, we signed an agreement to negotiate, and then we discuss more. So we are still, since 2013, sort of discussing what will be inside of this mobility partnership. Okay, so this is more or less where we are with participation. What I wanted to show you are actually the dates. You will see that a lot of these instruments are on since 2011 to 2013. So there is a big impact of the Arab Spring and of the, how to put it, Russian assertiveness in the region. All right. So the end is near. What I want to reiterate is the change as an addition. So we added new tools to whatever policy we had already towards the neighbors, to the basket. We did that because of the two great events, basically, that really changed not only EU, let's say, outlook, but also the partners. The partners started to be more eager to cooperate. And then we had the change and transformation only in the RCPs where EU was able to cut the number of RCPs in half. And that was because there is more EU in the EU external policy, also because of the member states in the crisis doesn't have the money, really. So let's say the entity with the money would be a leader in that period. Okay, I think this is what you wanted to talk about. So this is it.
Thank you very much. Now we can start taking questions. We have actually half an hour before the session starts.
I'm just wondering whether the recent events in France are going to reflect a hardening of the borders or whatever around for EU. And also there's been some talk about reintroducing border inspection or whatever between EU countries.
This is actually a reality already now. So we are now out of the external cooperation. We are in the internal EU policy, which is the policy of the Schengen zone. What is important is to understand that it's not really the case that we didn't have internal inspections before. The difference was we had an activity that was called inland detection. So it basically meant that Austrian police could police 20 kilometers inside Italy or Germany and could check the documents of people there, right? And they were doing that, especially Austrians were doing that. Italians did it for them. And for obvious reasons, right? The idea is that the country that gets a lot of immigrants, they want to send them north because they have an issue dealing with them. Right now, what we see are actually the roadblocks, right? And this is the borders in the EU now inside. And these are in France, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Slovenia, So this is happening as we speak. It serves not only the document, well, the checking of the documents, because you probably read that actually the perpetrators of the attacks were checked by the police on this point, so it doesn't really change much when you think about it. These roadblocks are actually, they serve organization of the, the migrant flow. So they create a bottleneck, because otherwise it's just impossible to deal with the numbers, really, that we are experiencing now. So yes, the point is that as long as we will have the flows inside of the EU, in the number, as I said, is between 2,000 and 5,000 a day, we will have internal borders, because this is what we can do under the treaty, right? We can keep that up to half a year, or as long as the situation persists. This is the official legal. One, two, yes.
Sorry, ladies first, clarify the internal borders create the bottleneck, is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not only external. Because, well, it depends which external border. For example, in Hungary, they created no bottleneck, they just created a top or whatever, something, you just top everything. I think that there were like only 2 people who were allowed to come through as essentially. They went like really long on that. So, but even Germany has now the checks at the border in order really to create a bottleneck. They get a lot of people.
Do you feel that the EU's asylum policy is too generous, because the EU's asylum policy also considers people fleeing from poverty, except the poverty they can work in their own country sometimes to make a better life, whereas under the Geneva Convention, the refugee policy is only to admit those that are fleeing persecution in their own country or war.
I do not agree with that, because we do not legally accept people as refugees because of the poverty. There are countries like Sweden, this is an EU member, and Norway, that have much more generous approach. It's not really poverty, it's called vulnerability. So this is why they accept, for example, women with children much more than other countries in the EU. So they seek out very vulnerable refugees, and they're very welcoming in this sense. Other European countries are not welcoming at all. Basically, I think I mentioned that today at one of the talks. The recognition rate for the refugees is between 1.5% to almost 60%, depending on the country. We have 28 countries, right? And they differ. So it depends where you end up.
How is the EU working with transit countries, or are there policy tools that we utilize to work with transit countries to stem the migration flow?
So basically, if you sign every admission agreement, this will stem, because everybody who comes through your country will be sent back, and you have to accept them, right? Then we will pay you money to make it palatable. Is the word? Yeah. So then, for example, Ukraine was paid 30 million euro a year to build detention centers to provide the medical care for all the people that they were taking back from the EU. This way we didn't really have any issue of the transit flows through the eastern border, which is a land border, much safer actually than the sea. But no one was coming. They were all effectively stopped in Ukraine and then in Belarus. in general, the idea is that basically you have to apply quite country of asylum, as we say. So we have a list of safe countries outside of the EU. If we prove that you passed through that country, you will be asked to leave and go back and ask for asylum there. So, or in the EU. The problem is that people, for example, could not ask for asylum in Italy or Greece because the government there would say, we cannot process this, so we give you a travel document and you just go. You disappear. And this is, you may laugh, but this is a major issue. When you think about the security agenda, I showed you at the beginning the picture, so you can imagine this boat with thousands of people coming in, and they are only given the papers to go. No one is actually checking them, right? No one. This is a problem. And so what happens if you actually apply for asylum and then you get rejected? There are, I talked about that, right?
Too dark of a student.
Yeah, yeah. So there are, so I'm sorry for those who were there. So there are basically well, two ways of going abroad, well, three ways. The first is you'll be granted subsidiary protection or tolerated status. These are not really refugee statuses, so it means that you don't have the right to work and the right to family reunification. I think that one of those has the right to work, but I don't remember which one. And this is a group of people who cannot be returned to the country of origin because of the situation in the country of origin. So you have, for example, the Chechens that cannot be returned, and they are all on this status, right, for years now. This is what I heard recently, that basically Germany decided that they will change the policy. They won't be giving the refugee status to the Syrian refugees, but they will be giving a tolerated stay. So they can stay, but they have no right to family reunification and a limited right to work. Then you can get an order to leave the country, and if you refuse to leave the country and you are caught, then you are put on a flight home. And we call it, there are two ways of that. So there are the deportations under the EU Return Directive that are organized by Frontex and the member states. And there are also AVRs, we call it. So this is called Assisted Voluntary Return. And IOM is organizing that. You get money to go back home, basically. And that was the major issue with a big inflow from the Western Balkan countries. After they got their visa liberalization, we got a lot of Roma people who, well, they are mistreated where they are, basically. But they were not granted a refugee status, and many of them actually used this to shop for the country of asylum. They would go to a country that would pay the most for return. Because on your trip you can earn 5,000 euro a person. I mean, this is quite a lot of money. I mean, I would do that at one point. As a Polish academic, this is a lot of money. You have to think about it, right? What are the pull factors and the push factors behind migration also? It's not very black and white.
Why is Germany shifting from refugee status to this tolerated stay?
Because they don't want any more people coming. I mean,
How can they keep the open door policy?
cold like that for like 2 weeks. And no, the point is that many people actually misinterpreted the chancellor. She's not a kind of person I would say, like, we open, we take everybody. She said we open and we welcome everybody who is a refugee. So now the Germans will say who is the refugee, and these people will be welcome. But out of 800,000 people who will come there by the end of December, it's probably less than a half. And now with this idea that, even half will be around 400,000, and what will happen if, well, 80% of them are men, and they will be asking for family reunification, so we might see 1 million of people coming. This is undoable in the situation as we have, so it's better to give them the tolerated stay. Then we will work out what to do with this, because maybe the war will end. And then this idea is that, of course, all these people will go back to a country that is now in ruin, right? Yeah, when you think about it, it's pretty difficult.
Can I ask you how you come up with the number of 50% of the 800,000? Because there's so many numbers now flying around.
Everybody. So yeah,
everybody
this is
has their own numbers. How do you come with yours?
With mine, it's basically an estimation because the official sources that we have in Germany, based on the what they processed right now since the beginning of the year, which was 331,000 in October, at the end of October. Basically, 45% were people from Syria, Eritrea, Afghanistan. The others were not. Were from the Balkans, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and North Africa. And according to the policy as it is now, basically EU says we do not even look at these cases. Of course, there is an issue with the courts, right? So even if they were refused at the first hearing, we don't know what will happen in a year because they will all have an appeal procedure. So this is why I say, this is probably half of these people will stay one way or the other. If we consider that we will accept all the Syrians, Eritreans, and the Afghanis and Iraqis, but it's still, we don't know. We will know maybe in March next year.
45.
This is what we know. Because of course you have to also understand are people that have documents that are not actually theirs, right? And you also need time to check that. So they may say, well, we are from Syria, but they are not. So it's very, very, very complex, and Germans are actually overwhelmed with that, as far as I understand. But they are doing very, very good job, really. The numbers.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier on that there's a pretty wide variation in the acceptance rate for university and the cases that we're looking at. And you also said earlier to my students that one of the elements of the common asylum policy is this idea that there's a consistent set of rules in all member states when they're reviewing, when they're assessing the asylum claims. They apply the same rules. They do this in a fair way, and that the asylum seekers get fair treatment, fair and equal treatment in any member state. So there's a gap between policy and practice. What sort of tools, if anything, does the EU have to try to address this gap? What sort of political will is there to address this gap?
The political will is basically inexistent, but it's will change now because of the, let's say that the more powerful EU member state acknowledge that there is an issue and now they really want to do something about it. The problem is that the tools that we have are very weak because there is law, so we can have infringement procedures against the member states. This is why we created the EASO, which is the European Asylum System Office in Malta. So it's an agency like Frontex for the borders. We have an agency for asylum, and this is supposed to help the EU member states to meet the EU-wide requirements. But their, let's say, impact is very limited. But now they are actually gathering staff and expertise. So maybe this will have an impact later on, but down the road.
Yeah, does the EU have a coordinated policy, approach, whatever, to housing the refugees?
No, no. We have this solution that was proposed in the course on the member state of relocation inside of the EU, which is a problematic instrument in many ways. It's still, first of all, because it had to be forced on the EU member states, why it should be a very solidarity motivated approach, right? We are all in one union, but no. So we have 160,000 to be relocated for processing, right? So not people who are already processed, no, people who will be processed. This is not a big deal if you consider the numbers that are there entering, especially Germany and Austria and Hungary and Greece. So we will see if it works. Another problematic issue with this is that the asylum seekers do not want to go anywhere else, only Germany and maybe Sweden. I said that before, they don't want to go to France. Like France wanted to help with this relocation. They sent, I don't know how many buses, I think like 5, they came back empty. People refused to go to France to seek asylum. So we don't know how this element will work.
I want to ask you a more theoretical question about the European Union and the project of the European Union for some kind of community. So if you go back to 1992, which is 2012, the whole premise of the Single European Act was going to be, free movement of goods, people, capital, services. And we know there's a whole argument about that having been based on the kind of fortress Europe of the outside. I think you pointed to a lot of that fortress Europe with all these circles that you're showing. Every single circle is part of that fortress. But now you're also talking about, the Schengen agreement itself and the workings of that being shifted in this new context. So how would you assess the present moment for that project of a European community?
What doesn't kill us will make us stronger, I would say. It's, I think that we are in the period of the crises, many of them, since 2008. You referred to 1992, when we had this issue of the internal market, but that was also the year of another migration crisis that we had, with over 700,000 applications made in the EU for asylum. So it's not the first crisis, right? I have to repeat that all the time. And that was actually at the origin of what I was talking about. That crisis came to the point where we have to admit that there are things that do not work. In the euro crisis, we all admitted that the member states had the rules. The rules were okay, but they were not really implemented. This is why we had the crisis, and it was France and Germany that broke the rules for the first time, right? And they set a bad example, so to speak. In the migration crisis, what happened is actually the member states had to admit that many rules around asylum were on paper but did not work at all for years now, and they were not doing anything about that. So this is the moment where you have to overhaul the policy and the project. So very important for the future of the EU. I think that it's more important than the euro crisis because euro was a part, well, it's important for 17 member states. This is important for 28 plus 3 plus 4. I always forget about it. So it is not only about Schengen, but also it's also important for the countries outside of Schengen that are a part of it, right? And we'll see how it works. If we have new mechanisms that will strengthen the solidarity, this will strengthen the internal market. If not, I'm not sure, theoretically, what will happen. We are having now asymmetrical games, say, right now, and a moment of chaos.
That brings us to the end of our time. Please join me in thanking you. We invite you to join us for the reception. It's down the hall in the fishbowl, which is